Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into a massive global investigation to uncover the true, often hidden costs, both human and environmental, behind our absolute addiction to cheap clothing. Look, clothes today are cheaper and easier to get than ever before, right? But that convenience, it's masking a pretty dark reality. We're going to break down the source material to reveal exactly what happens to our planet just so we can grab a fresh outfit for the weekend. Let's get into it.
So, let's kick things off by challenging a really basic assumption. If you had to rank the fashion industry against heavy, notoriously dirty industries, think coal, oil, fracking, mass transport, where exactly would you put it in terms of environmental damage? Just take a quick second and really think about your answer.
Well, if you guessed that fashion is somewhere near the bottom of that list, you are definitely not alone. Most of us just naturally assume clothing is, relatively harmless and we rank it dead last. But the reality, it is absolutely staggering. Fashion is actually one of the top 5 most polluting industries globally. We're talking about an environmental footprint that's right up there on par with oil and chemicals. Crazy, right?
Which brings us to Section 1, the scene of the crime cotton. To really wrap our heads around this impact, we're going to travel to our first ecological crime scene and investigate a fabric that we all falsely assume is 100% natural and completely clean.
The core of the whole issue here is the sheer, frankly, unsustainable volume of our consumption. Get this, over 100 billion new garments are produced from brand new fibers every single year. The current business model basically treats clothing as a fast-moving, disposable consumer good, and honestly, the planet literally cannot sustain this level of relentless production. We're running on borrowed time.
And one of the most catastrophic results of that mass production is what happened to the Aral Sea in Central Asia. Back in the 1960s, this was a massive oasis covering 68 million square kilometers. But to feed the exploding global demand for cotton, rivers feeding the sea were diverted to giant agricultural farms. Fast forward to today, and an area of water the size of Ireland has been completely lost. It went from a vibrant inland sea to a vast, barren desert in just 4 decades.
The physical transformation is just devastating to think about. I mean, the Aral Sea used to be known for these beautiful turquoise waters, a mild climate, and it supported a booming fishing industry bringing in tens of thousands of tons of fish. Now, abandoned, rusting ships are just sitting out there on dry land. The summer temperatures hit a blistering 45 degrees Celsius, and camels are literally walking right across a dried-up, toxic seabed.
But the loss of the water itself is really just the beginning of the nightmare. Because those rivers were drained, the surrounding region completely lost its vegetation, which led to massive sandstorms, ones you can literally see from space. And these storms sweep up leftover agricultural pesticides straight from the farms and carry them across the whole region. This has caused a horrifying spike in severe, poverty-related diseases for the local communities, like tuberculosis, strokes, and these completely unprecedented surges in cancer.
So how does this all relate back to us in our closets? Well, to help visualize the massive water footprint required to just grow cotton, think about this. Growing the cotton for just one single pair of jeans requires an astounding 15,523 liters of water.
Now add a standard shirt to those jeans. Suddenly, the water needed for just one casual, everyday outfit balloons to over 20,500 liters. And if you go out and do a typical fast fashion shopping haul, that cost skyrockets to over 35,618 liters. To put that into a perspective that really hits home, that is the equivalent of about 49 years of drinking water for a single person. All of that just for a few bags of clothes that, let's be honest, might just end up sitting in the back of your closet.
Okay, moving on to Section 2, rivers of toxic waste. For this part of the investigation, we're shifting from the drained deserts of Kazakhstan over to the boiling, severely polluted waterways of Indonesia. This brings us to the Citarum River. Now, this is a vital water source for 28 million people. Unfortunately, it is absolutely surrounded by over 400 textile factories. And here's the kicker. Many of these factories, which actually supply high street brands all over the globe, use hidden underwater pipes to illegally pump steaming, purple, foul-smelling chemical waste directly into the river. This is the exact same water that local families have to use for bathing, washing their clothes, and even irrigating their rice fields.
When environmental toxicologists take samples of this bubbling, frothing water to a laboratory, the results are nothing short of terrifying. The testing reveals a toxic cocktail of dangerous heavy metals that are directly linked to the dyes used in textile manufacturing. We're talking about things like mercury, cadmium, lead, and arsenic, all just flowing right down the river.
The on-the-ground reality for those 28 million people is just heartbreaking. Long-term exposure to these heavy metals has some incredibly severe consequences. Mercury, for instance, can cause life-altering brain damage, while lead exposure is proven to lower childhood IQ levels. So you have families washing their children in this river, completely inadvertently exposing them to agonizing skin conditions and long-term neurological threats. And why? All to keep the manufacturing costs of our everyday garments down.
This situation is actually so dire that even the local textile representatives are the ones sounding the alarm. The chairman of the Indonesian Textile Manufacturers Association is practically begging Western brands to prioritize environmental care over rock-bottom manufacturing prices. He warns that if we don't fix this issue, the planet is gone, because water is our life, water is our future.
All right, Section 3, the silence of brands. It is time we try and hold the massive corporate brands accountable for these environmental crime scenes.
You see, the entire business model of fashion has fundamentally shifted to create this crisis. Think about it. We used to have 4 traditional fashion seasons, right? Spring, summer, fall, winter. Today, that has rapidly accelerated into 52-plus micro-collections every single year. It's basically a new season every week. This intense, engineered volume conditions us to just buy constantly. And as a direct result of that cycle, 300,000 tons of clothing are dumped into landfills annually.
But you know, when researchers and journalists actually attempt to confront the brands driving all this volume, the response is just a deafening silence. Despite parading around at high-profile sustainability summits, almost every major high-street brand out there, we're talking big names like ASOS, Zara, Marks & Spencer, Monsoon, Next, River Island, and Primark, completely refuse to sit down and transparently discuss their direct connection to these ecological disasters.
However, Paul Dillinger, who is the head of innovation at Levi's, did sit down, and he very candidly admitted that the industry is just too vast, too decentralized, and honestly way too resistant to change on a voluntary basis. He said, and I quote, "There will have to be a regulatory solution, because there just isn't enough water for it not to." Basically, what he's saying is that without strict government regulations forcing transparency and real change, the fashion industry is literally going to drain us dry.
This brings us to Section 4, changing how we shop. To wrap this up, we have to look at the accomplices fueling this massive machine, our own personal consumption habits, and the influencer culture that actively drives them.
Get this, British consumers alone spent nearly £50 billion on clothing in just a single year. And a massive driver behind all this consumption is social media. We've all seen them, online fashion influencers with millions of followers posting these continuous, massive shopping haul videos. These videos are specifically designed to make constant consumption look like this highly desirable, fun lifestyle. But they inadvertently mask the real-world devastation of places like the Aral Sea and the Citarum River.
But look, it's not all doom and gloom. There is a path forward. Interestingly, when these same influencers are confronted with the horrific reality behind the clothes they're promoting, they help highlight exactly how we can start fighting back as everyday consumers. And the steps are surprisingly simple and actionable. First, we need to completely normalize wearing our outfits more than once. Second, we can start swapping clothes with friends to refresh our wardrobes without buying new. And perhaps most importantly, we just need to speak directly to our own networks about conscious shopping.
We've seen the drained seas. We've seen the poisoned, bubbling rivers. We know about the heavy metals and the severe health impacts. So the ultimate question I really want to leave you with today is this. Knowing the hidden, devastating cost of your clothes, what are you going to do differently the next time you're tempted by a cheap, fast fashion bargain? Will you change your shopping habits, or are we going to continue to wear the destruction of our planet? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I really hope this gives you something powerful to chew on the next time you open your wardrobe.